Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. We're doing things a little different today, so I hope you end up loving this particular video because we get a little bit personal, right? It is February, which means two great things are happening. We've got Black History Month as well as Valentine's Day. So, el mes de amor, right? So, if for those of you who are asking, like, who is this dude sitting next to Rebecca? This is my Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, Craig.
Yep.
So I wanted y'all to meet my husband, and we're gonna have some real talk about the things that have worked. We don't have a perfect relationship, right, Craig?
No one has a perfect
right?
relationship. Yeah.
So it's not to like pretend like we have it all figured out, but if it's one thing I do know is that we've been able to have success in both our careers, our respective careers, you as an entrepreneur, me in the education not-for-profit space, because of some really simple things and that we implemented early on. And then also we want to have some real talk around what is it like having a bicultural marriage, right? And I even don't like saying mixed marriage because I feel like Puerto Rican culture, we are a mix of so many different things.
It's not as far as if, say, you were 100% European.
Right, that's right.
Right.
I like how he says 100% European, you mean like 100% white.
Stated another way.
Right,
yeah.
right. So, see, Craig is much better about wordsmithing and filtering, and me not so much. But opposites attract, right, babe?
That's right.
I recently had a live on Instagram where we talked about work-life balance, and one of the things that I said is critically important is that, and I truly feel this way about you, is that the reason why I've had success in my career is because I picked the right person to be partnered with in life.
Thank you.
And so, you're welcome. And so I think that, you know, it's so funny because when I think about like how much Latina moms in particular stress about who is my son or daughter gonna date? Are they and I don't think that's a thing that's unique to Hispanic moms. But I think that who you choose as your life partner and the support system that you set up around you is so critically important for career success. And I just have to say it is that being married to an entrepreneur has its own set of unique opportunities, right? Because we're on a path of just trying to, you know, bring about the kind of options and generational wealth that, you know, our ancestors would only dream about, right? And so there were some things that we did early on in our relationship, like for instance, how we even celebrated our wedding marriage, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To kind of call upon the two cultures and the infusion of African culture in Latin culture, particularly in Puerto Rican, in music and dance and all that stuff. So why don't you tell everybody what we did for our rehearsal dinner?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we tried to do, it's easy, particularly in society now, to focus on differences. We tried to focus on the points of commonality,
Yeah,
right? And so at the reception, we highlighted aspects of Puerto Rican culture that had African influences. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately that helped people, because I had family members that didn't know anything about Puerto Rican culture, right?
I remember some of them calling me like, is she making tacos tonight?
Yeah, right. And so I think ultimately what we did for my family that was from the South, from some of your family, some from the island and some from now Florida where they live, is to just create a bridge where all would feel comfortable.
Yeah,
right?
that's
That
right.
was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rehearsal dinner was a way to have people come together and find something that they could do together. And in that case, it was dancing, right? And so I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, so when we did the rehearsal dinner, we had my best friend's husband. He is African American as well, but he is a pianist with a salsa group. And so we ended up having Norman, he came to rehearsal dinner, and I vividly remember how he was teaching our family about the history of merengue being a dance that was derived by the slaves on that island, and how all that hip movement, right, is because at the time that they were, you know, at the end of the day when they would gather around and fellowship with each other as best as you can when you're in, you know, oppression, they had their ankles, you know, chained together. And so all they could move were their hips. And it was really cool at the rehearsal dinner kind of seeing the light bulbs go off for some of our family members that probably were like, oh, this is a biracial marriage, you know, two different, dramatically different cultures, and, you know, being able to, as you said, bridge that, you know, understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is we generally, most people grow up in silos. and they don't get a chance to interact. I didn't grow up that way. I grew up with a lot of different cultures, and so I didn't have the opinion that one group is this way, another group is that way from ignorance. I had it from the perspective of actually knowing people that were from different cultures. And I think what we did is we tried to accomplish, frankly, what I think if every person were fortunate to experience other cultures, I think our world would be much better.
Oh, absolutely, right? Absolutely. And so one of the things that really has helped mutually, you know, our marriage is that you had a mom that was a career woman. You know, she was getting her, during the time that you were growing up, she was getting her advanced degree, a master's in social work, right?
Education.
And education.
Yeah, counseling and education, yeah.
And so you observed your mom having both a career, but also be a homemaker.
She cooked every day.
Yeah.
Almost every day. And definitely was very involved in the house. So she did it all. Yeah.
That's right. And so, and then likewise, me observing my father be an entrepreneur and seeing how my mom and my dad would negotiate some of those challenges of the time commitment. I remember our first few years of marriage, you worked 7 days a week. It was all consuming building your business. But it was fine because we didn't have kids, and I was also living and working in between two cities, between Washington, D.C. and Chicago. And I remember how scandalous that was in our family. Not scandalous, I don't want to make it seem like it was all gossipy and spilling the tea and whatever, but it wasn't the norm the way we were living our lives in the beginning of our marriage, where at Monday through Thursday I was in Washington, D.C. You were working Sunday through Sunday, and you know, I think me having observed my dad work, you know, pretty much Monday through Saturday and pull these ridiculous hours, it kind of got me ready for being in a marriage to someone like you that, you know, as an entrepreneur. So that's something that I also shared with my followers on Instagram that seemed to really resonate for folks.
What I would say is oftentimes people early on would look at us in our marriage and feel like, oh, you have two different cultures, right?
Yeah.
That must be hard, must be challenging. But I never really viewed it that way, because I think, you know, case in point, if someone of Italian descent marries someone of Irish descent, it's not viewed as two cultures, even though it really is.
Yeah, that's
right?
right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a pretty significant difference on the history of those two cultures. And so I would compare it more in line to that, which is there's African influence, there's African blood in Puerto Ricans, right?
That's right.
Those
That's right.
willing to admit it or not, right? It's still there. And then I think on the African American side, there's this mixture, right? Like it's just far deeper than just black folks in this country. And so many of us, as part of slavery, came through the Caribbean.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
so we probably even have cousins that speak Spanish
That's right.
that we just never met or don't know. So when I think about it culturally, it isn't as big of a gap as I think some people do, because in general, I think we don't educate our children in school about culture.
Yeah.
We don't educate ourselves about culture. And so it creates these areas of ignorance where people, blind spots, right? Yeah. That's right. Blind spots where people are making assumptions based on, you know, a teaspoon of information, trying to make, you know, gallon decisions. You know?
One of the reasons why I was giggling is I was thinking about the many times we've gone to Puerto Rico and how when we visit certain parts of Puerto Rico, like Isla Verde and various pueblos where the Puerto Ricans there are black. And when we went to the grocery store, like a lot of them started approaching Craig and speaking in Spanish and thinking that you were Puerto Rican as well.
That's
and
right.
so yeah, there's definitely...
Like, slow down.
I was like, un poquito por favor, suavemente. But yeah, no, that's one of the reasons I was giggling, is just remembering how cool you felt. Like it felt so cool for you to have that experience. And it made me feel good because I'm like, yes, you know, to a certain extent, I hope you feel that you're at home when you're on the island.
Yeah, and I think I oftentimes talk to people who've never been to the island, and we've obviously been a lot. It's one of the few places where you'll see someone my complexion, someone your complexion, and then someone that looks straight up white.
Yeah.
And they may all be in the same family.
That's right.
For most people considered white or of European descent, that's not common, right? There's no like real dark-skinned black cousin that shows up and says, hey, I'm cousin so-and-so, right? At the family reunion.
Right.
It's pretty homogenous.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Puerto Rican culture is like, you got uncles that I've put my arms next to
I know,
saying, hey
I'll
man,
never forget.
you might be darker than me.
Yeah.
And so that's more common than it is uncommon.
Yeah.
And that's another piece that I think a lot of people don't fully appreciate or really even understand.
So we have two beautiful kids, Sophia and Solomon, 12 and 13 years old. And I'm so proud of the strong sense of identity that they have of themselves racially. You know, it's interesting because of course, they totally identify with being Puerto Rican. They love the food. Solomon and I can dance a little. Well, you and I dance salsa, and so Solomon and I, you know, will, while I'm cooking or whatever, we'll do a little merengazo and that sort of thing. But they're also very clear that they identify and love their black side, if you will. And I love how you always tease them like, you're actually a little bit more black than you are anything else. But it's really, I just love the way they embrace their identity. Again, I don't feel like it's two separate polar opposite cultures. We always try to find ways to identify and celebrate, you know, all the aspects of their Puerto Ricanism and their blackness. And so I know we're very clear on where they're going to go to school, right, as far as college.
Well, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of time left. I don't like pushing and saying they have to do this, because then when they get older, they want to do the opposite. So ultimately,
reverse psychology.
Yeah, I want to do what's best for them, and it's going to be an experience where they feel like they fit, right? Mm-hmm. Because if they go somewhere and they feel like they're an outsider, that's one of the worst experiences, right? Because college should be the best time of your life. But no, I agree. I mean, I think both of our kids have a really strong sense of self. They are proud of who they are, which is something great. When you're in a minority class, it's very easy to not be proud of who you are. And they both have a tremendous sense of pride, and they don't shy away. And even with their friends, right? They communicate.
Remember when Solomon for Halloween?
Yeah. Solomon decided he was going to dress as Malcolm X on his own a few years ago. And we were both
in a school that's predominantly white.
Yeah, and we were like, oh, okay, but this was his choice. He studied them, he did a class project, and he was very thoughtful. It wasn't just something that was taken lightly.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually dug into it. And, you know, I mean, I think they both have a strong sense of self. I think they both are tremendously proud. I think they see us, right, every day. And they see more positive than negative, which probably also helps with that.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is, if either one of us were not a good influence, then it's easy for a child to want to run away from that side of the culture, right? Yeah. Because they associate it with something negative.
That's right. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed this candid conversation around race and celebrating the Puerto Rican culture and how we are a little bit of everything, including the African culture. And so if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, you know what to do. I'm Rebecca Nieves Huffman. Thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you on the next one. Samo! Cierra la puerta. I can hear you yelling.
And your time is up, bro.
Close the door, please.